As Indiana continues a shift to solar energy, so too has the relationship between solar energy developers and landowners. Some landowners have been able to add an extra influx of cash to their operations by allowing developers to use their land for solar panels for up to 30 years. But one major group has been left out of many discussions of switching out farmland for solar panels, farm leasers. Clayton Baumgarth has this report.
In the next 5 years, Indiana is expected to install 6.7 gigawatts of solar capacity, enough to power more than 5 million homes. If done, Indiana would become the fourth in the nation for solar growth behind only Texas, California, and Florida. But utility-scale solar farms need space to generate that kind of power, with about 7 acres needed to produce 1 megawatt of energy. And for years now, solar developers have been coordinating with landowners to get their projects on the ground.
The money was fairly solid, but all the other things were not favorable at all. And that ground's out of production.
Petty is a farmer who works and lives right in the middle of a large solar development in Fairbanks. He both owns and rents farmland to make his livelihood. Petty represents the 39% of farmers in America that rent their farmland and stand to lose out the most when solar developers come knocking. So far, he's lost 400 acres of farmable land to solar panels. As a renter, Petty lost out on farmland he uses to make a living and also didn't receive the financial benefits of working with a solar developer.
I've definitely had to be more aggressive on buying ground that's come up for sale.
Petty's parents were approached to host panels in their fields. His father said no when it was made clear that work would affect his topsoil. His mother, on the other hand, went all in.
Ain't nothing hurts more than watching ground that you've farmed literally all your life, that you put a house up right across from and thought you'd always work it, and now you're working the dregs.
There are other issues that crop up too. As a heavy agricultural state, Indiana has much of what the USDA calls prime farmland based on soil quality and local weather patterns.
And it's not just being able to grow good crops. There's actually maps out there that will define areas that the USDA says are prime farmland. And anytime panels go on those, there are conflicts.
And when panels are in place for the average 30-year contract length, soil health becomes questionable.
Anytime you're looking at bare soil underneath panels, you are degrading the soil to the highest degree possible, creating potential erosion, losing organic matter, and at the end of the life of the solar panels, returning a really degraded awful kind of situation to the landowner.
Schmidt says that farmers and developers need to consider how the placement of panels in fields affects the growth of ethanol and food.
The question is a trade-off of whether we would prefer to create the energy that goes to electrify our grid or the energy that goes to feed ourselves and provide the fuels that we currently use to get around.
So with all these drawbacks to placing solar panels in farmable cropland, why do developers go after fields? Doral Renewables, the largest solar developer in the state with over $3 billion worth of projects underway, says they look at 3 things when targeting the right land. First is the level of sun the land receives. Second is the proximity to existing power lines to move the energy to the grid. And third, what are the zoning laws and how will the community react?
It's that third one that is always the big challenge that plays out over time, because it's the thing that really is going to affect a community, and but in both positive and negative ways potentially.
During that final part of their process, Parzik says they sign up many landowners in order to hedge their bets.
So there's never a case where it's rare that one landowner will say no, unless they have a substantial amount of land, and then it just kills the project in total. A lot of times you can work around it.
Doral also says their projects help inject money into areas with little economic drivers outside of agriculture.
We have technicians who will be part of the project long term, come from local labor pools. They live in the area. We continue to pump money into the area with people who have to come in and cut grass or fix panels or fix fences, plow roads, etc. So there is money coming in.
It's tricky because at the end of the day, switching to green energy is something that many farmers agree with.
I'm all for, trying new ways of, bringing in power, because Lord knows, we're going to run out at some point. But it feels a little bit like cutting off your nose to spite your face.
That's where the Nature Conservancy comes in. Their efforts are focused on trying to help developers site land responsibly.
I think the Nature Conservancy would be the first to say that not all clean energy projects are good clean energy projects. And that usually comes down to where they're sited.
One of the ways they're doing this is through their Mine the Sun initiative, a project attempting to get developers to place panels on abandoned mines and brownfields throughout the state, pieces of land which are abandoned and not being used otherwise.
We're identifying acres across the state where you don't have to move those acres out of traditional row crop agriculture, which is a priority for a state like Indiana. A major part of our economy is agriculture.
They're also encouraging developers to look into agrivoltaics, a method which allows farmers to continue to farm underneath solar panels, as well as co-location.
A quarter of that acre is the footprint of a wind turbine. Why not surround the rest of it with solar electricity? So trying to find the areas of the state where it makes sense to do co-location.
Through efforts like this, farmers like Petty could have more farmland to make a living off of and more clean energy to keep our environment safe. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
Now, last year, 17% of energy came from renewables, but by 2040, utility providers want that number to be 65%.